Welcome to the Dental and Mental Podcast.
We are going to be talking to you about the business and the mindset of dentistry. Welcome to the Dental and Mental Podcast. I'm Dr. Davina Dietrich.
I'm Dr. Galen Dietrich, I think. It's good to be here.
So what are we talking about today?
This actually comes from, do we have a mailbag? We're going to call it the mailbag from one of our subscribers, actually. Okay. So they were listening, and they happened to be one of our clients as well. And they were talking about how running a small business, essentially being an entrepreneur, is really, really difficult. And how they felt very seen on the podcast because they feel like, there's so much of this that we're teaching, which is like, how do you navigate the waters of being a small business owner? If you're a dentist and you own your practice, you are a small business owner. You are entrepreneurial in nature. And so they were just kind of, essentially saying it felt good to be seen for how hard it is. And I think their feeling at that particular point in time was, fuck this shit. Like, this is not enjoyable, right? And there are definitely moments where I think it is that way. But I think it's one of the really important distinctions that we want to talk about here is how do you know if you're doing something incorrectly and that's what's making it miserable? Or is it just part and parcel to the pathway of success? Because there's a feeling out there or a sense that if you're really successful, you'll never experience these things, which isn't true. Like, you still have really, really bad days as a business owner, right? We have a friend who's actually like dealing with a lot of things on the solar side of things, with changes in the industry. And like, maybe those tax credits aren't going to be around anymore. Well, very successful business, and that's a scary thing. So are you going to have to just completely shift your business model? Like, are you going to let people go? There's a lot of fear that can come up around that, and it basically lies on your shoulders.
Right. So, okay, when there's no doubt that there are difficulties that come up when running a business.
Correct.
Right? Like, we can all agree on that. Do you think, though, that some of it is actual problems or perceived problems? What is the mixture?
Okay.
Because those two things are different, right? Actual problems and perceived problems are not the same.
Perceived problems are secondary to either failures or successes. And what I mean by that is, let's say that you have a practice and you just hit your very first $100,000 month. So it's a success. It's a win. But like in our last podcast, we talked about kind of letting the foot off the gas, like our daughter letting the foot off the gas a little bit, right? Or you ended a coaching relationship, you're done, you feel good, but you didn't really make those things a habit. And now the next month, you start to experience these problems that are the result of not continuing that success or maybe getting a little bit too comfortable, right? The perception is typically the thing that comes secondary to whatever that stimuli was. So whether it's a success followed by a failure, whatever it is, or it could be a real problem. Someone just quit. The perception is the way you're looking at that stimuli, good or bad. And I think that's where people really mess up. And that's one of the reasons why having support is so important, is because how you either accurately or inaccurately assess a situation is very much determinant of how you'll go through it.
Yes.
And for how long you'll go through it.
Right.
And I think so many people, myself included, for time periods, have struggled with that because it's really easy to look at this and say, well, running a small business is just hard. And one of the coaches that we had early on told me, stop saying that word. And I was like, what do you mean? And they're like, stop saying it's hard. And I remember being like, semantics, bro, it is hard. Like, whatever. But the more I thought about it, it was really right. He's like, use the word challenging, because that's something you can overcome. If it's hard, then you're labeling it as something that it just is, in which case you're going to always perceive it that way. And I think it's a really important piece, but I needed somebody to see that for me and to tweak it.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
So yeah, I think the perception is where most of the resistance lies. It's not in the problem itself. It's not in the success itself. It's in the way you're perceiving it. And that's when it becomes very much a habitual action or inaction that people adopt.
Yeah, I think that's true.
Yeah. You coach people a lot. You certainly you've worked as a dentist. Where in your experience, actually, I'll be very specific. You worked for a practice for a period of time, extremely sweet people who were running it. But there were some difficulties, sometimes making payroll, in the way that they operated their business, things that they felt they had to do for people to be good people still, right? A lot of discounting, et cetera. But it had trickle-down effects on you. What did you notice about now that you're here, what did you notice about the habits or the perceptions that they were operating on as small business owners that made their life very difficult and subsequently the people that work for them?
I think the biggest, what I see as the most difficulty that people have as small business owners is that they are people pleasers. Mm-hmm. That's what makes it difficult. And I've harped on this podcast a million times. But the difficulty comes in all of the head talk that's like, well, this person's going to be everybody's going to be mad, upset. I can't do this. I can't change this. And so before you know it, when you have polled the audience of people in your head and what you think is acceptable, you're exhausted.
Yeah.
Right? People pleasing is exhausting.
Yes, it is.
It's absolutely exhausting.
And hear this the right way. I think you know a lot less about it than I do. And what I mean by that is, thankfully, you're not a huge people pleaser. You never really were.
Nope.
You get to see the effects of it, though. And you're very astute at seeing when it's showing up. But yeah.
Because I'm removed from it, I can see it really easily. Yeah. And I can also ask the question, why are you doing that? Mm-hmm. Why are you behaving in this way? What are you getting out of it? Because there's something that people get out of people pleasing, right? It's the validation, need to be seen, need to be liked, right?
It's justification for inaction.
Or inaction.
But yeah, not doing something, indecision, inaction.
Yeah.
It is a justification for that. No doubt.
Absolutely. And so I think that when we clear that piece up, people fly.
Yes. Yeah. I definitely agree with that.
That is one of the biggest places that we can unlock somebody's potential is like by dissecting the people-pleasing part.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, oh, well, I've got to eat. It's even silly things. It's not even necessarily just relegated to the business. It's like, well, I've got to go to this. We were talking to our contractor the other day. So we're renovating our house and he's a really great guy. And we're like, oh, what are you doing for Memorial Day weekend or whatever it is? And he's like, I am catching up on work. I'm like, he was living like a bachelor life. He was like catching up on work. He said that his wife was going out of town to a baby shower and he decided that he was going to opt out of it.
Right.
And how free he felt. And this is one of the things from my perspective, because I've never done this, I don't say yes to things that I don't want to do.
And what was great about it is that this is a person that he knew and he was putting up a boundary because of the way they had treated him.
Yes.
And he's like, after having poured so much in and I get this so little out, why would I invest more? It's not working. I'd rather invest that somewhere else.
Right. And so it's that. And it's interesting to watch people understand how much can be unlocked by saying no to people that you don't want to say yes to.
I think that we don't. So I talk about this with patients all the time. And actually, if you're a dentist listening, which, I mean, you might not be since we're really growing amongst the non-dentists.
That's right.
But actually, this could be a laterally translated and applicable idea. When I'm talking to patients, especially if they just had work done over here or something broke or chipped over here, whatever it is, I always tell them, look at your mouth like an equation, right? There's an equal sign right there in the middle. And so whatever happens on the right side, the brain is going to try to make this equation balance. So if you're missing a tooth up here, you take out your first molar, you now have less support on the right side. And so you have more teeth on the left. Your brain's going to use more of that on the left because it's got more support that way, which tends to imbalance the bite forces. So then you start to tweak and break and fracture things on the left. And it just ping pongs back and forth. And when I say that to patients, they're like, makes complete sense.
They get it.
Like, I get that. I have dealt with that. They go in, oh, there's something here on the right. Now there's something here on the left. There's something, and it just keeps doing this their whole life. And that's where you get this patchwork quilt dentistry done. Well, Your business is the same way, but I don't think we look at it that way. So for example, the practice that you're in, there's a giving to please certain patients or an insurance company or whatever, right? But you have to take from somewhere else to do that. And so you start taking from your employees. And you start taking from your family because now you're stressed about money. And you start stealing from your health because you don't have the time to actually eat properly and all the rest. It will always balance out. So if you do not see it that way, like our architect, right? Saying, I'm putting into this equation, but they're over there, that's where they're getting it. I'm getting nothing. I'm just the person supplying all the time. That doesn't work for me anymore. This equation doesn't work.
Right.
You have to start looking at your business that way.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's a really good example. And I think it's really tangible for people to be able to say, okay, where are my checks and balances and where am I stealing from?
What I find most commonly with the people who own businesses, whether it's a dental office or it's another business, if they tell themselves, how often do we hear this? I'm a small business owner. I'm not going to lie to you. I hate that phrase.
I do too.
I hate it.
I do too.
And I think the reason I hate it is because of what it actually connotates for most business owners, which is, let me translate it. I'm a mediocre, compromising, put myself last business owner. That's what it means. And that's ratchet. Like, what are we doing? That's kind of the same thing as me saying, like, it's just hard. It's just hard. There's a lot of baggage associated with small business owner. Because you're a smaller business, you actually now prioritize. Oh, I see this all the time. I have to prioritize the relationships that are in this, right? What's the big difference between a corporate, let's say, and a fee-for-service practice like Devin and I's? Well, we know all of our employees' names. We know their spouses. We know a lot about them. We're invested in their lives. And in corporate, they answer to shareholders. So at the end of the day, it's like, well, the business has to run. And we care that it's generating cash flow. We care that it's profitable. So it's almost like when you say you're a small business owner, a lot of times you're like, but that's the enemy because they don't care about people.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But I care about people.
Right.
But to your point, now I'm a people pleaser. You can care about people and run business.
Right.
And actually, that's the best way that the equation runs. The best thing for me to know, we tell our staff is to be like, all right, to get a bigger bonus, if we hire 3 more people, we've had team members be like, now I'm drowning. Like, there's just so much work. I can't do it all myself. And we're like, okay, well, we can hire somebody else. When we do that, the bonus structure is going to change. You won't get as much because we just hired somebody else, and that's more money that we have to go spend to take your job and some of the things that you don't want to do. Are you okay with that? We make it a decision, just like you and I do with our kids. And it's shocking how many times when you do that, where they now have a decision, do I want to make less but have what I said I wanted, or do I want the help? And 9 times out of 10, they're like, I'll figure out a way to do it.
Right. Interesting how that works out, right?
Right? It's just an equation. And we don't think about it that way. We're not neutral in our businesses. It's a small business. So I'm going to make a bunch of changes that shouldn't be.
Small business is so lemonade stand. Right? Like, unless you're a lemonade stand, we've got to stop calling it that.
I love that. Yeah. What would you call it?
I don't know, but I would not. Yeah, I like that. I don't like that word. You can say I run a business. You can say what it does. You can say, right, there's a lot of ways that you can rephrase that and remove the small out of it. What are you, small thinking, small serving? Like what is small about what you're providing, right? Small vision. What is it? What is the small that you're providing? The other thing too, and I think about this because I just had a conversation with one of my girlfriends who does own her own business. And we were talking about how her and I share this core belief that we're always going to be okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
We just have that, right? And you can really see it in her and in the way she runs her business. She really has the mindset of, I will figure it out. Mm-hmm. I will figure it out. And we were talking about it in contrast to some people who are so preferential about everything that they take their preferences and they turn it into, they hold their happiness hostage over their preferences.
Yeah, explain that, because I think that's really true. But some context around that.
Okay, so it's like, okay, if you don't get the exact thing that you want, right? And when I say preferences, I think people have a tendency now to label it as authenticity. Okay, it's like, okay, well, I'm only authentic if I do X, Y, and Z, right? I have to have this table. It has to be this temperature. We have to go at this time for a flight. Like everything is preferences. Everything has to be preferential. I don't wake up before this time. I like to have this for my meals. Like there are so many constraints that you can't even have a good time because if any little thing is tweaked off balance, you're like, oh my God, I can't work under these conditions.
Another word for that probably is fragile.
Well, yeah.
Like really fragile.
Well, it is. And these people they're not agile, right? They can't move.
Not putting the agile and fragile.
Yeah, exactly. They can't move. And so one of the things from a coaching perspective that when I start listening to somebody, I will tell them, you are being a baby about this thing, right? Like, what are we talking about? How are we deciding to go through this thing? Are we going to decide that nothing is my preference and everything is against me and everything is so hard and I just can't make it work and Susan needs this and I just can't say that to her and X, Y, and Z? I'm like, God, no wonder you're tortured all the time. Yeah. And if I'm on a 30-minute call with you and I'm feeling tortured by listening to all your torture and your problems, how do you think everybody else in your life hears you? Right? So we have got to change the way that you're thinking about this. We've got to look at things through neutrality. And are you going to solve the problem or are you not?
I love it. Jerry Jones, right? Owner of the Cowboys.
That's why I don't know who that is.
You know how you know him? You know him from our show.
He was in Landman. Oh,
yeah,
yes.
Great speech.
Oh, that was so good. Okay, I know who he is. Right.
So Jerry Jones is being interviewed. This is relatively recently. And he was asked what it took to be a successful business owner. And he's highly, highly successful, obviously. And he said, entrepreneurs and business owners have to have a very rare skill set. And he said it's rare and that most people don't have it, but they think that they do, which is kind of getting to what you're saying. They don't have a tolerance for ambiguity. And the interviewer was like, well, can you tell me more about that? Like, what do you mean by that? And he's like, if you are a business owner or an entrepreneur, you do not have a paycheck guaranteed. But if you're an employee, you do, for as long as that business is running. Right. So there's comfort and security and clarity in the role of an employee, which is 98% of the human population, right? It's the group of people who say, I'm okay. God's got me. I will be taken care of. But I've got to build this thing. And I got to build a hell or high water. And I know we're going to have some really difficult times in it. And I know I'm going to have some challenges, but we're going to be okay. And we're going to thrive. And we're going to do what we set out to do. I'm betting on me. That's the tolerance for ambiguity. Because you don't actually have a framework for how it's going to happen. Right. You are building on the way down. I thought it was such a great way of putting it. And it really goes what you're saying, because most people who think they have a business are incredibly fragile when their mentality. And they're terrible delegators. They try to do everything themselves. They're people pleasers still. They discount services. They think that they are worth way more than they skip steps, right? It's like when you first start out, maybe you're worth this, but then you ratchet up. You calibrate in value. But they'll start out like we had somebody the other day. There's like, I want to get paid $65 an hour as a hygienist. And you're like, how long have you been out of school? 3 years. No. Right. What is the value that you're providing? Do you know how much I made my first year out as a dentist? Yeah. $52 an hour. Right. So no, you will not be paid that. Why? Because you don't understand business, right? Pearl for everybody here. If you own a dental practice, your hygienist should produce 3 times what you pay them per hour, or you are losing money on them. Period. In a story. So dang, when I do that calculation, my docs made bank off of me. I was selling like hotcakes. Gum graft for you, gum graft for you. Is that recession I see? Exactly. No, yeah, you have that skill set because you believe. And I think that's what makes people really, really powerful as salesmen and saleswomen. It's not that you're, just the right thing to say and you're so charismatic or this, that, and the other. It's not. It's how powerful your belief is. Is it contagious? Right. Is it contagious? And yours is. It's one of the reasons why you're such a good coach. You talked about this a little bit in the last podcast. But you think about like a mob. Like mobs are such a strange phenomenon because that herd or mob mentality, like people aren't whispering like, let's do this next. And everyone gets the message. There's this contagious energy by one or two people that get that mob going. And then suddenly it starts to come alive all in unison.
Like a soccer game.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. You know, I don't even really know anything about sports. And when we went to the Juventus
AC Milan game.
Yeah, I was the biggest soccer fan on the planet. I was like, oh my gosh, this is incredible.
75,000 people all chain smoking with banners flying and everyone chanting and the concrete doing this.
There is like, that was one of the best times in my life and I don't even understand the game.
What is a goal?
But I was in it. I was like, this is... oh my gosh, where are the season tickets?
Right.
How do I be a part of this? That was incredible.
That is it.
Well,
you don't have to understand everything about the thing to be able to say yes to it. In fact, that's most of the time you don't.
Well, think about a sad sack owner then, right? Where you're like, woe is me, business is hard, problems stink. And then you come in and you're like,
do you want to do the filling? You don't want to do the filling? I wouldn't want to either. I don't even really want to be here.
and your team is like, this place sucks. And you're like, I just can't figure out why my team won't rally behind me. Do you have any guesses?
Well, I think if you have this idea or vision, which everyone does have that, you have a vision for your life in some way, shape, or form. We all do. Some, it's a lot more crystallized and clear. And for others, they have no clue, never really thought about it. And others ping pong back and forth between what they think is possible.
Right.
And what the reality is. I think what you see very, very commonly is people who have a vision, and unfortunately, that doesn't seem possible in that moment, and so you ratchet it back, which limits your energy and your motivation and your desire to do it. So then you don't even achieve that because it's not worth going for, right? Like, I really want to start doing full arch composite resin veneers, and I want to be a boutique practice. And I want people to come to me for that. That seems a little bit impossible. What would I have to do to make that happen? Well, I have to downsize my team. I'd have to get rid of a couple people. I'd have to hire on someone who's even more skillful. I would have to market, which means I'm going to have to put out 5 to 8% of my annual revenue in marketing spend. How much do I spend now? 0.5%. Shit. I'd have to use the best materials because I want things to last. But I don't know if I can support that. Mm-hmm. And you're looking at things from where I am now to where I want to go. It doesn't seem possible. So then you make one little micro change and you don't do it sustainably because you're not fucking into it.
No, you're
bored by yourself.
There are entire Facebook groups devoted to saving on cotton rolls.
There sure are.
Right? Like these people go and spend their time being like, how much are you paying for a cotton roll? Like, what are we doing?
We talked about in the last podcast. You and I have done a lot of things very quickly. You, me, Dylan, the teams that we've had, like that is probably one of the trademarks that we move and we build things fast. We achieve quickly. And I think the reason we do that is because we pick things that are scary as shit. I don't know how we're going to do it. Well, we're all together. We believe together. Let's go.
Right.
And that's when you get it done.
Right.
Because there's such a hunger for it. This is not boring what we do, Well,
that's it. It's like there's no juice, right? You got no juice.
If you think that, you know what the first step's going to be? I think I just need to post more on Instagram. A few more of my before and afters. And you throw one or two of them out there. And the first one you get 15 likes and you're like, okay, I'm getting somewhere. And then the next one gets 5 and you're like, you know what? Well, I know this is why I didn't do this. And you stop. Yeah, not the right choice. That's not what's going to get it for you.
Right? And it actually is. It's actually very irrelevant, right, to use those particular metrics on whether or not you should keep going.
Oh, agreed.
Dylan and I have talked about this. One of my favorite influencers, she's not a person that has like loads and loads and loads of comments. She has a very niche group, but there is so much power in her and the way that she creates content and who it's for, that she influences the other influencers. But you can't actually see it if you were looking at post metrics alone.
Right.
You wouldn't actually be able to see it. But this is the person that the people who know, like if you know, You are looking at this person's stuff and you're getting inspiration from that, and then you're going and creating. So I don't think that her influence is actually, I don't think the metric is measured to its full extent, because I think she's more of like a kingmaker. And I don't think people really get it because it's so niche.
You told me something the other day. This is so good for this. If you're listening, this is such a good piece. I came home, I can't remember what it was, probably like 2 weeks ago. And I was on the phone and it was actually kind of interesting because I was really upset and like focused on this problem. And you were like, you're home now, it's time to like put work away. And I was so concerned with the fact that we have a lot of reviews, right? A lot of 5-star reviews as a practice. But
what's a lot?
I think we're like 975 or so right now. Teetering on 1,000. And Devin, my partner's always watching reviews, which I love him for actually, because he'll screenshot them, send them into the group text. But I started making this sort of observation over the last year or so where I'm like, I wonder if they're going out to my people, to my patients, because the vast majority are Devin's 5-star reviews. And I was like, I know when people leave that they had a great time, they enjoyed it, beautiful work, like things. I'm confident enough in that, but I'm not getting a bunch of 5-star reviews, and Devin is, and to his credit, because he's a great dentist. And I wrote to him and I was like, dude, I think it's broken. I think the system's broken. I'm not getting it. And he's like, you just suck. Right.
Very Devin. Very Devin response.
Yeah. Very Devin response. Like, you just suck. And I was just like on this thing. I had to figure out what the problem was. And so I wrote our marketing team and all the rest. But then you said something, if you remember what you said, and it was so good. And I had to think about it for a good night or two. And after I really thought about it, I was like, that is such a brilliant way of looking at it. Do you remember what you said to me?
What did I say?
You said, some people get reviews, others get referrals.
I did say that.
And I really thought about that. And I was like, well, let me see if the system's broken first. Spoiler alert, it's not broken, guys.
It's working just fine.
Just not getting reviews. And I it was like an ego check for me. The first part was like, all right, you're not getting it. Like that's not what they're doing. But then I started going through referrals and like, how did this person come to me? And that's how it works for me. People do. They talk to somebody else because of the kind of dentistry that I do largely. I don't know that a lot of people want to go out and tell everyone like, I had all this done. Let me go put my name, my face and like review. And I had this and this.
Right.
But they'll go tell their friends.
Yes.
Right. And they'll go tell family members. And so I have a lot of these like long chains of people who all know each other as referrals. And I was like, you know what? You got to be able to put the review thing to the side and see something more accurately, right? And measure it the correct way. And if I hadn't had you say that, there's no telling where I kind of would have gone mentally on that and where I would have put a lot of effort as a business owner. I put a lot of effort into something that was not actually broken. I just needed to shift my perspective.
Right, exactly. That's exactly it. Because sometimes we don't realize, unless you have somebody to be able to see this thing for you, that there is an entire, if you know culture. And when we're talking about spending a lot of money, right, which an FMR is, we are now moving into an if you know. Right? You've got to know somebody. You've got to be invited into something. Somebody has to tell you about it. There are things that you have to be able to gain access to that you only can do if somebody else has done it first and lets you in on the thing. And people don't actually put enough stock in that because they're out there competing for a bunch of other things because that's the metric. That's the display.
That's the display. That's great.
Right?
That's a great way of putting it.
That's the display. And so I do not always think that those metrics equate to how relevant you are.
I love that.
Or how much influence you have. And so people can spend a lot of time crazy making on silly things if they're tracking the wrong thing.
If you enjoyed this episode of the Dental and Mental Podcast and this topic resonated with you, We go so much deeper inside the Thrive Lab.
So if you too want to be copied but not replicated, come join us in the lab.
And just for you, because you listen to the podcast, if you want a full $1,200 off of the year-long subscription, just use coupon code podcast. See you then. Would you suggest that this following statement is true? That one of the greatest benefits of having support, being coached, working with, alongside, having accountability, is actually almost kind of being incubated or isolated from some of those metrics and voices and all that, because it's such a personal relationship, right? I think a lot of times what we try to get people to do is shut off all the other stuff.
I think that that's true to some extent, but I think the caveat there is who's coaching you.
Okay. Yeah.
Right? Who's coaching you? If you want something that somebody else is doing and you like what their metrics are and what they're going for, then by all means. But one thing that I can say confidently about myself and about you is we don't think like other people. So when you're coming in and you're like, oh, I don't have enough reviews or whatever it is, if you have somebody who's chasing that as well, then expect the feedback from that coach to be like, well, we've got to do this and we've got to start the marketing machine and get your mailers out and we're going to run a promotion and you're going to give away toothbrushes in a raffle. I don't think that way because the people that I coach do not want that. We build special things. We build extraordinary things. We build things off the beaten path. We build practices that a lot of other people want or aspire to have, which is why the people that we coach turn into leaders within this industry and other people seek them out for their advice, their expertise, and their point of view because they're building something entirely new.
Yeah,
and you and I give them that framework to be able to think in a different way because we don't want to build things like everybody else.
You love fashion. I'm going to butcher some of these, right? But whether it's Fendi or Chanel or Gucci or whoever else, they don't run sales. They are not doing the gitchy things to try to get you in the door and build up mass scale and all the rest. It's just we do what we do. You come to us for this known brand. It's the quality, it's the creativity, right? It's these things. And I think that influences heavily the way that you coach.
It does because it's the way I buy too, right? I'm not buying something that's new. I am looking for a vintage Galliano from this certain runway piece. I have an alert set for that thing if that thing comes on the market.
I don't know any of what you just said, but I like it. I'm here for it.
Okay. For example, we'll just take this for a little example. What I am wearing today is an Issey Miyake Pleats Please set.
Say that again.
Issey Miyake Pleats Please.
Pleats Please?
Yeah. Because see, it's pleated.
Yeah. Okay. But what's the please part?
It's just called Pleats Please.
Oh, more pleats, please.
Yeah, I like that, right? So this is an Issey Miyake Pleats Please.
And is it kind of like a solar vibe here?
Well,
like some stars
but it's rare, right? These are curated pieces. You can get a set that has nothing on it. As you can see, I do have there is a printed side, right?
More pleats, please.
There are more pleats, please, right?
Okay.
But this is not something I found randomly. This is something that
you sought out.
I'm seeking out, right? Yeah. There is something that I'm very intentional about. There is a curation. And this is something that we do within our coaching. It's not one size fits all. Let's do a hustle and grind culture. Let's put these exact systems and replicate them in every office.
Okay, so this is see if this tracks with what you're saying, because this is something that I've experienced, and I know we've seen it for doctors as well. We actually see this for business owners in general, which is, again, going back to vision. You have a certain way that you want to practice. So for me, I knew that I wanted to do comprehensive dentistry. And then comprehensive became a buzzword I didn't really care for as much. And so I started to look at like, what specifically in comprehensive dentistry do I care for? And I really like making broken things beautiful. That's what I like. And if you had to like say, what do you like doing in life, Galen? It's that.
And you do it in all kinds of places. You've done it with gardens, with homes, you've curated a million different things that, even our rental houses, you leave them looking better than when we moved in.
We did sell a garden at one point in time.
Yeah,
we did.
Right.
It was a fun time. Well, thank you. And yeah, I do. That's what I love doing. And so then that became, okay, so there's this bioaesthetic or cosmetic portion And then I also want to incorporate proper protocols and this, that, and the other. So it became this, what I call the bio triad, right? We're going to approach things biologically, whole body, biomimetically, putting things back together the way nature would actually always intended, and then what I call nature 2.0 dentistry. It's making what we see naturally still natural, but just heightened, elevated, enhanced. Okay, so that's the concept. What is interesting is that as I start to look at who that person is that sees that and doesn't need me to explain a bunch, that just says, I didn't even know what to ask for, but you're it, and I want that. That patient, that client is so easy to work with.
The best.
Right? So easy. It's like, this is just a match made in heaven, right? Well, that person is not going to show up on your door every single day if you're also trying to market to all the other things to keep your schedule full. And so what it's asking of you is faith. It's asking of you risk, AKA tolerance for ambiguity. Can you say, today we did nothing but consults and I made no money today. I actually lost money today because I was planting seeds and I kept in integrity with what my vision was for what I wanted to build. That's really hard.
Absolutely.
It's really hard.
People drop alignment all the time.
All the time. And I love to use that word. So what do? They pepper in the things they don't really like doing. And I'm guilty of this too. We've done that, where you pepper it in and then before you know it, you're in this cycle again of things you don't like doing. And you're like, I'll never get there. And we see that so often. And I think it's that misalignment.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that is really true.
How do you fix that? I mean, short of just like stick with it. What is the recipe?
It's not a stick with it. The stick with it isn't just keep grinding it out.
Yeah.
It's tightening your alignment. So it's getting even more clear on what is acceptable for you and what is not acceptable for you. So you've got to continue to hold the standard. And it's holding a standard even when it makes no sense, right? So from a coaching perspective, I won't work with just anybody.
In other words, you're saying that a person has to be able to stay in alignment. You have to have certain boundaries in place that have made room for the thing that you want. And so I'm kind of saying that's like waiting for the thing. It's an active waiting, but you're actively waiting and holding space for the thing that is a part of your vision.
Patience is an action.
Okay, great. That's kind of where I was going. So talk more about that. People
think that patience is inaction. Patience is an action. And what people often mistake is people think that not being patient means taking action, which is why they get cycled into this shiny object syndrome.
So good.
It's like chasing this. It's like the action that you actually need to take is to be patient.
And that's coming from somebody
who's very impatient.
Who's very impatient, but you become much more of that in very interesting ways.
Well, because the patience doesn't mean an action. Patience is holding the standard, which is what I'm saying. I do not take clients that I don't like working with. I will fire them, and I will.
Yeah.
I will. We've done it before.
Yeah.
Right? I will fire people that I don't like working with, and I have that in my contract.
Yeah. And it's not like you're just like one day like, no, I'm not into you. It's that you actually are very patient with them. But if they, again, it's one side or they're not using or whatever else it is, that is also in your contract. Like, that's what I'm here for. We're not here to waste each other's time. You're very good about, if you can't cut it, I'll cut it. And I've done the same thing with clients.
This isn't a surprise like, hey, one day you're fired. It is a clear conversation from the get-go. These are the expectations that I have of you, and here are your expectations that you have of me, which is how we're entering into this agreement. Yeah. So we're agreeing that we're both going to show up and we're going to play at this level to get you the result that you said that you wanted.
Right.
So if you're not showing up to calls, or you're showing up without doing homework, or we are continuing to talk about this problem for the 6th session in a row and you are not doing anything that I've said to be able to correct it, then what are we doing here?
It goes back to, I'm a small business owner. You're essentially putting a ceiling on your thought processes, on your systems, on the potential growth, the kinetics of your practice, right? And I think that if a person stays there and they label it that way, this is hard. This is difficult. This is, too complex. that's what they're going to end up doing, is doing this. And you're like, but I was hired to take you here and you're just doing this.
Right.
And everything that I'm doing, you're too afraid to get out of the cycle. Now,
here's the thing too. You can circle around in your cycle for a lot cheaper. All right. Like, please don't hire me if you want to stay talking about the same problems. You can do that on like an app for like $40 a month. So please do that.
Yeah.
This isn't the place to come for that.
In terms of, okay, so as we kind of wrap this one up, how do you know on both sides? How do you know when you're like, this person is not getting it, I can't help you, we're going to part ways?
Because that person is always right about everything.
Ooh.
The person who is miserable to work with already has it all figured out. Mm-hmm. They are afraid of feedback and they hide.
I was just going to say hiding is a huge piece. People
who hide will not make quantum leaps.
I had a client like this relatively recently, about a year ago. And they were all those things. They knew better. And I'd also say that it's a person who oftentimes comes to you and they flatter at first. Like there's a warning sign a little bit, right? I say this because patients are like this way.
Yes.
If you have a patient who's like, money's not a problem, you're the best, you're a godsend, I've been looking for you ever, be really freaking careful. Mm-hmm. Like be careful around that person, because that is characteristic of somebody who is going to leech from you. And when they are confronted with their growth edge, they will run and they'll blame you for the fact that they didn't accomplish what they wanted to accomplish.
Yes, they will dump your projection. They will dump their projections on you.
Yeah, 100%.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think that is where it's actually almost the most difficult. This goes to parenting and everything else, doesn't it? Where you have to hold that line, even when you're kind of hated for holding that line and no one understands why. But you're like, that I'm in this position for a reason and I have to hold it so that you one day, hopefully, will see why.
These are some of my favorite Voxers to get from clients, where a patient shits on them, where a colleague shits on them, where they get negative posts on something that they have an opinion and a stance for, and they start questioning themselves like, oh my gosh, is this the right way? A patient hates this. I'm getting into a lawsuit. I'm in embezzlement. Like what? Like no, I'm embezzling. Like maybe they're getting embezzled from, right? Like
I'm embezzling. I don't know why.
No, right?
Keep
like
doing it.
Something that happens that really starts to shake them because they are getting their character and what they are building and their vision is getting attacked.
Yes.
And a lot of times it's very public. And I love getting these Voxers because that is like, let's go. Like, let's turn this in from like, woe is me, I'm a small business owner, to like, now it's time to play.
Right.
Like, let's do this. We can handle this. This is not a big deal. It's not a big deal.
It's not a big deal. And those attacks, Mike Tyson has this in one of his interviews and I freaking love it. But he talks about how, you get to the big dance, the big fight, the whatever it is. And he's like, that's when the devil shows up. And he's like, and it is your job to go home with who took you to the dance. The devil will show up trying to get you to go with him. But you have to remember who brought you to the dance.
Wow.
And you go home with it. And I was like, that's so good.
I know. Unexpected from Mike Tyson.
With his little voice.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Gotta go home with it. It's so good. It's so good. But I love that concept for people who are to the point of this whole mailbag and this entire podcast where, it is hard. It is difficult, but you got to get out of the cycle of seeing it that way and saying it and actually start to get excited about this. Those are signposts that you're going the right direction, that you're starting to get a little risky and good. Like part of you is exposed. That's why it's painful.
Yeah.
You're exposed because you're going outside the comfort of what you know and what everyone else knows, but that's what you said you wanted.
Right.
You can't be sad when you get what you said you wanted and it's painful at first. Of course it is. That's marriage. Marriage is tough. Parenting is tough. And we usually see with clients, all these things happen at the same time. Huh?
Yeah.
It's like the same pattern starts to show up and they're like, my kid just suddenly did this and I'm having a fight with my spouse. And you're like, well, yeah, but it's all the same thing. And it's all telling you, keep going.
This is the opportunity. We keep going. We can handle this and you can handle more than you possibly think. And things that you would have thought 6 months ago were the biggest catastrophe in your life don't even shake you.
It's the blessing, not the curse.
Yeah.
100%.
Absolutely. So. Well, I hope that a lot of ears find this one.
Hopefully their ears aren't ornamental. Like
Hopefully your ears are open and
you have
available.
eyes to see and ears to hear.
Exactly.
There we go.
All right.
All right, guys. Love you. Thanks for being here. Thank you for listening and or watching the Dental and Mental podcast. If you enjoyed this episode or any others for that matter, feel free to tap that subscribe button on YouTube, Apple, Amazon, as well as Spotify. While you're there, why not leave us a review up to 5 stars? And if you're on YouTube, go ahead and leave us a comment. Let us know what topic you want us to discuss next.
If you like what you heard today and you want to be involved in the Thrive world from coaching to courses or just to connect with us, go to thethrivedentist.com.